Alrighty guys, let's talk about the RE9 rumor mill. We got Dust Golem, Fat Golem being debunked once more, or he's debunking something. Let's talk about that. Let's constantly speak about grain of salt rumors. We don't know fuck all about RE9. There's gonna be goat men, there's gonna be this, there's gonna be that. I mean, possibly it could be, but let's take it with a grain of salt. We're gonna talk about these rumors, the speculation. Fat Golem in his underwear is speaking about Resident Evil 9. He is the pariah of the Resident Evil community. No, fuck that, alright? No, I refuse. I played that charade for way too long. And I feel like there's just nothing to talk about in the Resident Evil atmosphere in terms of videos. Like, no disrespect to content creators who want to create and make theories, speculations, and chats about potential rumors from Biohazard, the classified about Resident Evil. That's fine. You can do whatever you want on your channel. I'll do whatever I want. But I feel as though after that official confirmation from Capcom Next, that event that they had with Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster and Resident Evil on iOS, that was the last time we heard like pertinent information on RE this year. Oh, just Nakanishi saying there was a new RE in development, obviously RE9, and I can't wait. I cannot wait for that. I think it's going to be a cool game. I want to see how it formulates. If it is really ambitious, let's see what happens. Let them cook. At the same time, I feel as though with no solid news, screenshots, screen caps, videos, no clips of RE9 whatsoever, there's nothing to really analyze. It's just like reporters chasing a story. Whoever's gonna be right wins the most clicks, and honestly I want more solid confirmation before believing someone where you could take them at face value with a grain of salt. All right, instead I want to do something different. I don't want to talk about Fat Golem rumors, Dust Golem rumors. I want to talk about my experience growing up with Resident Evil and how I turned into a fan of the franchise for the first time in history. All right, so we have to turn the clock back from all the rumors and guesstimation and whatnot from Fat Golem existing and go back to when I was a little boy. I was someone who was very privy to horror at the time. I was kind of indoctrinated into it because my mom, my aunts, my grandfather at the time, we all loved horror movies. I think my first horror movie ever was Nightmare on Elm Street 1. And I got into seeing those like really bloody, disgusting films really early. And I liked it for the most part. I was someone who could handle horror films at a very young age. Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. We watched that stuff all the time on repeat. I remember RE1 coming out. I think it was like, what, 1996 or whatever. Someone correct me in the comments and make sure I'm right. But I remember my brother and his cousins, they were playing the game upstairs. I was kind of being a little cheeky at this point because I wasn't supposed to be watching this game. I remember them explaining, hey, this is a mature rated project. This was when everyone was trying to get like kind of fancy with their ESRB terms and saying, oh, it has animated violence and blood and gore. You shouldn't be watching this. But ultimately my cousins, they didn't give a fuck because they wanted me to experience this cool experience alongside with them. I remember seeing various stages of the game when I was a child. I saw, you know, the initial mansion opening with Chris Redfield Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Albert Wesker. It was a cool ass bomb intro, like fire everywhere, giving the characters introductions, like color, class. I loved it personally. And then we get to the gameplay. Fixed camera, tank controls, a bunch of monsters around. I remember seeing Plant 42 like snap someone in half. I was like, oh shit, okay. I was used to horror movies, but I was not used to horror video games. I was mostly indoctrinated there by Pac-Man, Mega Man, you know, your very Boy Scout childhood heroes that are very kid-friendly. For horror gaming, it was a different sort of vibe, and I don't know why. I was used to horror movies, but not horror games. Like seeing for the first time that zombie turn around and you see his like completely deceased mug and those eyes staring back at you with blood dripping down his mouth. You look in fear and you realize they're taking a video game to the next level. My immersion was at peak high during this point. I was completely awestruck, fear-struck. The hairs on my forearms was like teetering on the edge when that first zombie gets the fuck up. He turns around, Chris backs up, and then he lurches forward and tries to kill you. In this 3D video game was next level. Seeing the blood squirt from Chris's neck after he's bitten by the first zombie left me in a state where I never experienced anything like this before. I've seen stuff like in the past. I've played Eternal Champions, but I've never seen a game this immersive on violence. And it really scared me at the time. It was like something that I was not used to. And it really showed. Like I got like a bubbling in my stomach. I was legitimately horrified of Resident Evil. I could not play the first game. I remember my other cousin had a copy over his house. I fucking got killed by the first zombie. I cut that shit off. And it's not the first time I had a fear in a video game. Like that fucking Sonic drowning music scared the shit out of me, alright? It's like when you hear it for the first time, it just warps around your mind. And I remember being like this for the longest time. Fast forward into Resident Evil 2 and 3. I couldn't play 2. I couldn't play 3. Nemesis, like, just the way he looked, like this horrifying, charred up creature, and the fact that he ran after you in the video game, I was like, oh no, oh fucking no. But the adverts, the commercials, they were all over the place. On SmackDown, they were on Raw. The fear is in your blood. Like, I remember seeing that and going, you know what? I might be scared shitless of Resident Evil, but this is fucking cool advertising. Seeing like the zombies in like Raccoon City just decimating the police and seeing that gritty vibe in the streets, like trash everywhere, blood, people dying. It was captivating, to say the least. I think it was right here, being a wrestling fan and seeing those Resident Evil commercials, this is where I started to develop a respect for the franchise despite being scared. And fear eventually comes and culminates into his own, and it starts to become desensitizing after a while, after a few years, when I experienced more mature games, when I seen more mature games, when I got sat down in front of more mature games. Fast forward to when I was a teenager. I was surprised on my birthday by my mom with a PS2, and eventually I got Resident Evil Code Veronica the following year. The funny thing about this gift is I did not want it, you know what I mean? I kind of was fearful of RE at the time, still as a teenager, but morbid curiosity eventually killed the cat. And I remember sitting on my bed one night, it was like snowing, and I decided, you know what, I'm bored. I'm very bored. I have nothing else to play. I played everything. I played all the games that I gotten from prior Christmas gifts. I played all the games that I had from my current birthday at the time. It was quite a lot, actually. Dragon Ball, Budokai Tenkaichi, fire. Time Splitters 2 on the PS2, fire. Virtua Fighter 4 on the PS2, fire. I played almost everything I had except Resident Evil Code Veronica. And I remember Code Veronica X was the last game that it came down to that I needed to play. I also had Grand Theft Auto Vice City as well. I remember playing that until the disc broke, and I had nothing left but Code Veronica, a used copy at that, because, well, I couldn't progress to the second half of the game and play as Chris Redfield because the disc was fucked up. Popped it in my PS2, played Code Veronica. I started to get a feel for the atmosphere, the controls. I was playing it without fear. I managed to get all the way to the second part where they swap the discs, where Claire goes to the Antarctic. And I remember going, man, this shit is fun. Actually, it's very fun, strategic, where you go around and you have to like get around zombies and gather ammo and survive, essentially fighting these larger than life creatures and going at them with the knife. The knife was like the most overpowered fucking thing in the world for Code Veronica. Then later on, RE4 dropped, and I swear to God, I could not go around school without hearing people talk about this game, talk this game up. I remember X-Play giving RE4 like a fucking 5 out of 5. I was like, hold up, wait a minute, stop the press. We gotta get on this. Anything that gets a 5 out of 5 from X-Play at the time when they were like really, really goddamn good, it was a stamp of approval. It really was. It was a stamp of approval, and you had to go out and get this game because they were the most pessimistic, pedantic, cynical motherfuckers of all time. If X-Play gave something a 5 out of 5, it meant something to people, man. I got RE4. I was forever hooked into the franchise after playing Code Veronica, and I began retroactively collecting them. I remember later getting a PS3, and I saw most of the Resident Evils were on like PS3 to begin with in the PSN store, so I bought like 1, 2, 3. I bought all of them. RE5 came out. That was like blowing me away with the new African setting where Chris is like in Kijuju and there's these infected people going around, implications that Jill would come back maybe, or maybe there was Sherry in the tube. I remember like people saying the blonde girl was Sherry originally, and there was so much speculation online. I remember going to GameFAQs and engaging in the discussion in GameFAQs, even though it was like a toxic fucking cesspit. But I remember being so excited as an RE fan to discover this little thing called the internet and be like, oh, there's other people just like me, so I can talk my shit about RE, or I can speculate just like them, and going back and forth, etc. That was a really funny time, but I thought it was very interesting. So I started to become very, very hooked and entranced, and the movies came out. People took me to those, even though I liked the first one. The first RE movie was fine for what it was. The rest are like kind of ass, right? Kind of a little bit ass, but still I enjoyed the first one for what it was. And I saw this franchise that I was initially not wanting to be a part of turn into this cultural phenomenon. I remember being legitimately upset that I did not have a GameCube to experience the first Resident Evil remake, because I remember they eventually stopped coming to PlayStation for their mainline like entries, right? Or their newer entries where it's like they remade RE1, then they remade like fucking, well, not remade, but they put Zero there, they put RE4 there. I remember being pissed, like missing out on all of that. And then a year later, RE4 came out to PS2. And then I never played Outbreak, unfortunately. Back in the day I played it much later, but I kind of missed out on like the PS2 RE games. But I felt like, you know, they're just side games. I want to play the main entries, I want to get the main courses here. I remember buying a GameCube like a little bit after that and playing Remake 1 and being blown away by the sheer authenticity, everything they added, expanded upon, saying like 70% of the game was all different, was mind-boggling for me at the time for remakes. I never really experienced anything like that before. Like, oh shit, we're reliving it, but it's the best version of the game, let's get it. It was so much sheer excitement. Resident Evil meant a lot to me, and it still does, and I still love it and appreciate it to this day. I feel like it is one of the more successful and the most successful survival horror franchises out there. Been going down the road for like 20 plus years. It's like a locomotive. It never stopped. It is Capcom's like best-selling franchise of all time. And what the future holds, well, Capcom is in a good spot right now. They're in a good state of affairs right now, I would say. Their recent titles have been really good with Resident Evil. The remakes have been stellar for the most part. And I think it is a matter of waiting to see what they do next. Let them cook in the kitchen. And if they have like a lot of ambitious ideas for the 30th anniversary of Resident Evil, I think we're heading to number 30 now. Like, fuck, it's I remember it's like 20 plus years, then we hit 25, now we're almost at 30 in 2026, and it's gonna be wild. I believe we're gonna get like a smorgasbord of content for the next remakes. For RE9, we got like virtually one more year to go to see what they have to do, and honestly I cannot wait to see it. I think it's going to be exciting. And not only that, we have the return of Silent Hill, with Silent Hill 2 remake being really fantastic in my opinion. And now we see this resurgence of like, here's the king, here's the queen, here's like Resident Evil over here as the king, here's Silent Hill as the queen, and we're enjoying this sort of resurgence of these survival horror franchises. And I hope that other franchises will get better handle in the future and continue to be on this path, because remakes are pretty much in the now these days. So I am looking forward to seeing what the future holds. I don't think it could be any more of a better time to be a fan of Resident Evil. And if you aren't a fan yet, if you're scared of horror games, if you were like me, just sit down, play it a little bit, let your curiosity peak, and I promise you, you're gonna be in for a wild ride. Anyway, I am Renegade Operative. I am signing off. Tell me what you thought about this video in the comment section below. How did you start your humble beginnings with the RE franchise, and what made you become a fan? What was your first experience upon seeing Resident Evil for the first time, and what was your reaction? Tell me and let me know below, and share your memories and thoughts and comments. And I gotta say, PS, all the people that were mostly gaming in 1999, I am so envious of you guys. I wish I was not so scared of the franchise, because man, just imagine this year, 1999, a year where survival horror is peaked. Fucking Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Dino Crisis, Silent Hill, all those games came out in the same year. That's like fucking insanity to me when I think about it. Holy shit. Like, that was an amazing year for horror. I wish I was like just older and experiencing that year for the first time and going, oh shit, the third sequel of Resident Evil is out. Oh shit, here's a new dinosaur survival horror game. Oh shit, here's like Konami coming out the bat with like fucking Silent Hill after Metal Gear, their own like sort of horror game now after their Smash like stealth game. Like, oh shit, like that was the best year ever. The PlayStation 1 years are like unparalleled, dude. I swear to God, like I was so glad to at least experience some of that. Man, I tell you now though, 1999, that was the year of horror for sure, and I cannot wait for more. Until then, I will see you guys next time. Be good people, take care of yourselves, and as always, see you later.